Hey, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Danette has made some awesome slides to share with everyone.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that there's so many of you that want to talk about data quality. Hey, this is my favorite subject. So we had a webinar back in June. And so what you folks are going to get is you're going to get an overview of the 10 steps, and we're going to answer questions that we didn't have time to answer in the June webinar. And those questions were really great questions. And by answering them, you're going to get some more insight into the 10 steps. Plus, of course, you're going to have time to answer your own questions. On a few of the slides, you're going to see this icon of my book, Executing Data Quality Projects, 10 Steps to Quality Data and Trusted Information. And that is the book. And the subtitle is my methodology, my 10 steps methodology. So that is the subject of the training that is coming up in September. So there's a few slides that have this icon, and then it'll have some information where you can go get more detail in the book about that. I will not read this, but for those of you who don't know me, I have been in data quality for 33 plus years. I am as excited about data quality now as I was in the first year when I got introduced to this. Very important. So you will get copies of these slides so you can go back and read some more about me. My company, Granite Falls, we've been around for 21 years and provide consulting, training, and advising. So there we are. Let's jump right into the 10 steps. So today's starting point that you already know, but just to set that, is why do we even care about data quality? Data quality is used constantly every day by people. Who are the people? Like our customers, the clients, employees, business partners that we work with, and machines. Of course, AI is all over in everything now. And we've always had automated transactions. But especially with machines making decisions, the quality of the data is even more important because we don't have human judgment in there. So that data is used to make decisions and take actions. Why do we care about them? It's to meet our organization's business needs. Now, business needs is this term that I use throughout. It means things like, what are the most important things that my organization cares about? And it's probably going to fall into a bucket like satisfy customers or provide products and services or manage risk or increase business value. Those are some general statements. Now, in order to meet whatever is important to my organization, we do things internally like we implement strategies, we achieve goals, we address issues, we take advantage of opportunities. And different things will be of more priority at one point in time or the other. But data is actually part of every business need. So the question is your data up to the task? So that's what we're going to be talking about right now. So to address data and information quality, we have to be able to see that data and information quality are part of a problem that needs to be solved. You may be the only one in your organization who has those eyes and ears to be able to recognize that. We have to know how to think about the problem before we can act on the problem. And the 10 steps is going to help you do this. So I'm so happy that you are here today because you're helping to answer one of my concerns, which is, you know what? We need actual experts who know their stuff. I have been around for a long time, but I am not going to be around forever. And I want a whole nother generation of Danettes who know what I do and can go out and do good work for their organizations, really for the world. And without that kind of expertise, let's say, yeah, we have AI, we can ask ChatGPT a question. But when it comes back, looks good, sounds good, is it really? Is it really right? We need experts who can tell the difference when AI results are right and when they're not. So the 10 steps methodology takes us from concepts to action. I'm going to illustrate that using a cooking analogy. I have a bunch of friends, we're getting together. what we want to do is enjoy each other's company and have some good food. I'm going to do the cooking. And in order to do that and to follow a recipe, there's certain terms and techniques that I need to be able to follow. So, for instance, my mom is a great candy maker. And in her recipes, it says something like when she makes the world's best homemade caramels, oh, cook this sugar syrup mixture to the softball stage. I'm not going to get into the detail about what that is, but if you were cooking these and you just read the recipe and you go, oh, cook it to softball stage. Oh, I don't even know what that is. And you hurry and you stop, you walk away from the stove, you try to figure out what that is. By the time you've done that, you've already ruined the candy. So there's just certain terms and techniques in cooking that we need to know. And then we plan the event. How many people are coming? Who do we invite? Are there any dietary restrictions? What's our menu? That's an important part of organizing this event that we're going to have. And then we prepare the food. So we have a recipe and we follow the recipe. However, because we did our planning, we know that there's some adjustments. We can adjust the recipe for the number of people, for the dietary restrictions. Okay, so we do all of these things. Remember, we started with what we want to do is eat and enjoy. Now let's think about this from a data and information point of view. We do have key concepts related to data management, data quality, that we need to understand. We will touch on those in the training, and there's a section for those in the book. In addition, just like we plan an event, we have to structure our project. Now, I use the word project very broadly within my methodology. If that trips you up because your organization has a really strict definition of project, like it's a project if it's approved by committee XYZ, try to enlarge that. But you could also just substitute the phrase organizing your work. So we have to do a good job of organizing our work. And then we have the 10 steps process. So the 10 steps process has the same name as the methodology as a whole. And think of that as a recipe. So concrete instructions, there's examples, there's templates, there's best practices. However, just like preparing a recipe for one event versus another event, we adjust that for whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish, whatever our situation is. By bringing those together, that's really going to give us the successful results that we want. Why do we want that high quality data? We want to be able to make informed decisions and take effective action to address those business needs that we just defined earlier. So let me walk you through at a high level very quickly the 10 steps, and then we're going to get into some of the questions, and you're going to learn more about those as we go along. So first step, determine business needs and approach. Okay, we already defined business needs. Why are we doing this? Now, I may have a data quality problem, but let's not spend a bunch of time on a data quality problem that nobody cares about, or that isn't really going to be something that is significantly useful for our organization. And then approach is, how am I going to structure the project? How am I going to organize my work? So that's really the first step here. Very important foundation. There's a woman, Kimberly Weefling. She wrote this great short book on project management. This is really all about planning. And she says, just enough planning, not enough, not too much, but not a drop less either. Really, that's going to be part of your art of data quality, doing the right amount of planning. Now we have analyze information environment. So the best way to think about that is there's been a murder, there's a body, it's lying in the park. If the police are doing their job, what do they do? Now we could have a conversation about that, but quickly we'd expect them to come in and they'd cordon off the area. They would look at the time of day. Where was that person coming from? Where were they going? Why were they there at that time? Were there any witnesses? Is there evidence? We're going to take pictures. So those are all kinds of things that you would expect them to do. We have all kinds of data quality crime scenes. And what often happens, oh, we have this data quality crime. We swoop in, we correct it, and then we just go on with our lives. And then we keep wondering why we continue to have a bunch of data quality crime scenes. Of course, we have to correct our data, but that's not the only thing we need to think about. We have to broaden our thinking to really manage the quality well. So if we just swoop in and correct the data, that is just like there's a murder body lying in the park. Somebody comes in, they grab the body, they take it off to the coroner's office. They don't look for evidence. They don't follow up with witnesses. They don't do any of that. And then we wonder why we keep having murders in the park. Analyzing our information environment means looking at things like our metadata, part of what I call data specifications. We'll talk about that in a minute. We look at the people that are surrounding the data quality problem that we're having. What are the business needs? What are the processes? What technology is part of that? Where are we in our information lifecycle? So there's a number of things that we need to look at there. Super important. And if any of you are working with AI projects and AI talks about, oh, we need to understand context, everything that we do in step 2 around analyzing our information environment is all the context that is needed for AI. So once we do that, we assess data quality. We have different data quality dimensions, and we also have business impact techniques. And these business impact techniques answer the kinds of questions, why do we need to do this? So once we do that, and we really have found what's the magnitude and location of our data quality problems, we have some good background from analyzing our information environment. What we have found, we really need to identify root causes. That's a really important piece that we're trying to get to as quickly as possible in our work. From that, we develop improvement plans for the things that we need to take care of. There's 2 steps, 7 and 8. One is, what do we need to do to prevent future data errors, to address those root causes? And of course, when the time is right, we need to correct data errors. Now, these things are put together because you can do them in parallel, do one before the other, do them sequentially, whatever works for you. And then for all the things that we have learned here, there may be some data that is so important to certain business processes that we're doing that we really need to keep an eye on them. And we may need to monitor them in some kind of an ongoing basis. And this is really a handoff to ongoing operational business as usual processes. And underneath all of those is this bar. Step 10, communicate, manage, and engage people throughout. So that bar is a visual indicator to you that you need to do something around communicating, managing, engaging with people in every single step of the way. And in the methodology, you get suggestions in how to do that. In fact, I think the 10 steps, if it's not the first, it's one of the first data-related methodology that clearly shows you how to put in that people element. And then there is an important note down here in the lower left-hand corner, iterate among the steps. So even though you see the arrows moving forward, which we want to do, we keep making progress, we can always iterate among these steps as it makes sense for us to do that. So you've seen the 10 steps. In a general sense, you can say these first 5 steps are giving you some diagnostics, telling you what your current state is. And then the last steps, you see there's an overlap here with step 5, because either you're going to figure this out while you're doing your diagnostics, and if you skip it, you need to do it at the beginning of your whole remediation and improvement cycle. And so this is the type of thing, let's say you put a dashboard into place and you see a problem from the results of your data quality checks. Okay, you use this improvement cycle again. Oh, what are the root causes for the problem? What are our improvement plans? How do we prevent it? What data do we need to correct? And that's a whole improvement cycle. But sometimes you will find something that is just a big problem that warrants creating a separate piece of work or a project for that, in which case you can go back and you can look at step 1. So what I've illustrated here for you is this idea of different ways that we put data quality into practice. So we have projects on one side of this, we have operational processes on the other, and we have programs at the bottom. And the program is whatever that underlying infrastructure that is going on that will stay to ensure that we have people who know how to do data quality in projects, who know how to address operational data quality problems that come up in operational processes. So the focus of the book is we use projects as the vehicle for that data quality work. But once you learn the 10 steps through projects, you can apply the 10 steps often in very abbreviated fashion to operational processes, and you can incorporate it into an overall approach through your program. So people have common vocabulary, people have artifacts that they can share back and forth with each other. Because once you learn it, you will be able to use it again and again for the many numerous situations where data quality is all or part of the problem. Just another couple moments for the overview here is it's helpful to understand where the 10 steps fit in. So we have lots of good resources that talk more about concepts and ideas. So for example, if you're familiar with DAMA International, they have a data management body of knowledge. And a lot of that is more of the what. Really important. Remember, I said when we're cooking, we need to know terms and techniques. We have to understand these concepts and these ideas. On the other end of the spectrum, we have other aspects of data quality that go really deep. There's like a whole book on total data quality risk management or lifecycle management for big data. These are all really important. But what I found that people often have a problem with is, okay, I get the concept. Wow, this is some really good detail. Oh, how do I get started? Like, how do I bring this together? How do I get going? And that's really where the 10 steps fills the gap. It's that roadmap that bridges between, okay, I get what I need to do, and here's a lot of good detail. How do I get started? I really feel that the 10 steps I will never claim that it will be a standalone, but I feel like it is a really important piece of your data quality work to complement all the other resources out there that are on different ends of the spectrum. And the thing is, even if you're going through the 10 steps and I need to reach out into a whole nother book that has a bunch of detail, that's great, do it, but use the 10 steps to help keep you on track. You're going to learn a lot of good information as you go through these projects. And if you don't have this good, solid roadmap to bring yourself back and say, where am I going? You're going to end up wandering through the trees, and pretty soon you're 100 miles away from your destination. So it really fills an important role with all the other good resources that are out there. And so for those of you familiar with the DAMA wheel, this is just a quick comment. I like the DAMA wheel. I like how they break these knowledge areas into these different functions. I will say that while data quality is one knowledge area in the framework, I think the only reason that data management exists is for what? The purpose of high quality, reliable, trustworthy data and information that support our business needs. So, for instance, I've had people who, data modelers, programmers, they're thinking about data all day, but they learn some things of this broader picture and how they're fitting in with all of these other pieces that end up being really helpful for them because they're thinking about what they're doing is for the purpose of high quality, reliable, trustworthy data. Okay, so I'll pause for a second. Nicole, any questions before I go into questions and answers from the previous webinar?
No, everyone has been engrossed. And oh, we just got a question actually in the pause.
Okay.
I'm sure they were like frantically typing it. Okay, I can read it. Danette, how can organizations embed the 10 steps into their operating model so data quality becomes a sustainable capability rather than a series of isolated projects, especially when maturity and resources are limited?
Okay, that is a really good question. There is a similar question, not exactly the same. Hold
Mm,
on to that, and
okay.
I'm going to answer it. that in just a minute. Sorry, my throat just got dry. See, I'm so enthusiastic.
Nice.
I might have you read the question again when I
Mhm.
get to that spot. Okay, so the question was, I believe these 10 steps can be classified under the Deming cycle, plan, do, check, act, as it is always iterated. What's your opinion on this? So for each of these questions, I have a short answer, and then I've got some more slides to back it up. The person who asked this question, I was really glad that they recognize this plan, do, check, act. So in our data quality world, we borrow a lot of techniques and processes from the manufacturing quality arena and gurus such as Deming, Schuhart, Giran. If you don't know these names, go look them up. It's good to know their work. So the 10 steps process expands on this plan, do, check, act, or it's often called PDCA cycle. So the 10 steps are really complementary to these other improvement processes, and it helps fill out the data aspects of those approaches. This shows you a quick mapping between the 10 steps process. We've got the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, up at the top. If any of you are doing Six Sigma, they have a process called DMAIC, Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control. And then I sometimes refer to my data quality improvement cycle just in a simplified way. We assess the problem, we're aware of the problem, we take action on the problem, and we keep iterating that. So all of these, even though they're laid out in a straight line, these are all iterative processes. So I wanted to have this in front of you as I answered the question. So Nicole, will you just say the question one more time?
Yes, of course. The question was, how can organizations embed the 10 steps into their operating model so data quality is sustainable rather than one-off projects, especially where maturity and resources are limited?
Okay, so you can see that this is really like this project approach. It's a great question because this is why I talk about this data in action triangle. Because you need to address data quality in these different ways, but we need to look at them as a whole. So if you are developing a data quality strategy, or actually any data strategy, you need to account for all three sides of the triangle. How are we going to run our program? What is that ongoing piece to make sure that I have people who are trained in how to do things? Do we have a common vocabulary? Do we have a place that we can share artifacts from our various work? So that's the program piece. We have the projects, like this is a big problem. We have to address this. It's not going to get addressed in our day-to-day operational processes. We have to pull it off as a project. But out of those projects, we would expect that either we have new operational processes or we refine existing operational processes. So these three all work together. Now, there is not a 1, 2, and a 3 in it. You can start on any side of the triangle. I have worked with clients where the first thing is we want to establish our data quality program. Great. Oh, our first project is XYZ. Great. We get that project done. We're now putting that into business as usual. That's an operational process. By that time, the people there really know how to do data quality. So therefore, they can carry on the program themselves. They can do additional projects. They can be able to incorporate data quality into operational processes or use things like the 10 steps to very quickly address things in a service oriented, quick, we have a problem kind of thing that comes up in the operational processes. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, don't get dizzy. I'm just going through this. Okay, next question. These are two different questions, but the answer is the same thing. My data management contract just recently ended. Though the program was one of the most mature I have experienced, they still did not have insight into the cost or value of their data, even though their organization was reporting to the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, this is an org model I think makes sense. What has been your experience or thoughts about companies not having a handle on knowing the value of their data investment? Not unusual, sadly, that people don't know the value of their data investment. The corresponding question that I can answer both of them, the way data quality is addressed often is to fix the data on the consumption, the analytics side, often by various offices in their own way. There is replication of work, each office applying their own data cleansing rules. How do I best articulate the real cost and opportunity cost? And the bold here I put in a real cost and opportunity cost to make a case for a formal data governance program so that high quality data is generated at source. So, short answer, all of these questions are rooted in a basic underlying question. What is the impact of data quality to my business? And we can answer those questions using business impact techniques. So within the 10 steps, we have step 4, which is assess business impact. Now, even though it is step 4, we can use techniques from step 4 in any of our work. So, for example, I may be trying to get a data quality program started. I may be trying to ramp up a data quality project to address something specific. I'm meeting resistance. I need to build a business case. For any of those, even though you're in step 1, you reach into step 4. You look at these business impact techniques, and I'll show you the list of them. You reach into those business impact techniques and you address that problem wherever it is. Let's say you've gone through your project, you're identifying root causes, you're getting resistance for doing prevention work, which is basically what one of those questions was addressing. You hear that, you see that, you reach back into step 4. You look at these business impact techniques. Is there something here that can help me overcome that? So even though it's really important, even though it's step 4, you can use it, these business impact techniques at any time. So what is that? Qualitative or quantitative method for determining the effects of the quality of data on the organization. So I offer you in the 10 steps 11 really good business impact techniques. There is a placeholder which says, hey, you might have other relevant business impact techniques that you use that work. But we don't forget where we are in the 10 steps. That's great. Use another relevant business impact technique, but you still come back to the 10 steps. Don't lose your place. Now, the thing about this that can be helpful for people is that these are placed on this, what I call a continuum of relative time and effort. So technique number 1 here, relatively speaking, takes less time and is less complex to carry out than technique number 11, which is a full cost benefit analysis or cost of low quality data where you're really fully quantifying. These are all techniques that work really well against data. You can use them against data quality, against data governance, against metadata, like whatever data related things you're doing, these can apply. But we're talking about data quality today. So I found through early on in my career, I says, oh, I don't really have time. I'm just so busy doing data quality. I don't have time to deal with all those nitpicky questions about why do we care? I'm saying that facetiously because those are actually really important questions. And so it was helpful that I developed this continuum of relative time and effort and put the techniques on there because it may be that you really want to fully quantify a bunch of stuff, but maybe you don't have time. But you still need to answer those questions of why. You still need to move your project forward. You still need to build a business case. Maybe there are some other techniques that can help you do that. Relatively speaking, are going to take you less time. It doesn't mean that you can't do these other ones that might take more time and be more complex. You just have to look at it. That's part of your art of data quality. So you just have to take some time to just decide what's the time and effort that I have available. But I'm really stressing to you right now, if I could look you each in your eyes, do something around business impact because you're really going to need to do that. And if you feel pressed or if you're not sure where to start, you reach into step 4 and it's going to really help you. Oh, except for the continuum, it's not relative results. Every single one of these work. This is truly just relative time and effort because every one of these will be effective in the right time and place. I've seen it time and again. So when do I show value and business impact? The question that got asked actually articulated some of those. Answering any kind of questions. Why is it important? What difference will it have on me, my team, my organization? If you hear resistance or you hear words of support, but nobody's taking action to be consistent with those words, that's resistance. Maybe I need to establish a business case or determine appropriate investments. I need to gain support. Maybe I need to motivate my team members to participate. I need to prioritize efforts. I need to show why addressing root causes is more cost effective than only correcting. So these are times if you see these and you recognize these, remember your data quality, eyes and ears. You're going to keep your eyes open for this stuff. You start seeing and hearing these things, reach into step 4 and see what is there that might be able to help you. So just very quickly, you may get resistance because people are thinking tools and technology will fix the problem. Here's some of my favorite quotes. Sometimes I quote myself because I thought really hard about the best way to say it. So you have to excuse me on that. Thinking the right tool will take care of all your data quality problems is like believing the right x-ray machine will make you healthy. We all know an x-ray machine won't make us healthy, but we know having an x-ray machine at the right time and place is really critical. A hammer does not make you a carpenter, but you can't be a good carpenter without a hammer. So just having a tool doesn't mean you're going to have good data quality, but you need some good tools to help. I really like this one. Martin Obiozar from ExxonMobil. Tools are not solutions. Solutions are solutions. And sometimes solutions include tools. So you can think about the 10 steps. If people are all excited about a tool, the 10 steps are a wrapper around the tool to make your investment in that tool worthwhile. So, wrapping this out, sad truth, organizations willing to spend millions and tens of millions of dollars on tools, yet are often reluctant to spend tens and hundreds of thousands, think millions versus thousands, on the data, people, processes that make the tools work effectively and have that ultimate impact. So we as a community still have our work cut out for us, but people have been able to overcome this kind of resistance. And so the step 4 will help you. Now, I'm going to tie in the step 10. If you remember, it's the bar underneath all the other steps. Communicate, manage, and engage people throughout. You need to incorporate your best skills. So since we're talking about step 4, let's say that you have really done some great research and you've got all the numbers that really prove that data quality is going to save people a bunch of money. And I'm going to tell you, you got to still think about step 10 and incorporate those in together. Handing somebody in power or a position of responsibility and can make decisions, handing them a spreadsheet with all your results is not going to give you the results that you need. You need those results, but you got to figure out, how do I engage with them? What is important to them? How do I communicate with them? So that's why step 10, and this is just an example of how it works with step 4. And realizing that everything we do with step 10, it is part of our work, not something that gets in the way of the work. And I used to resist that idea, thinking, oh, I'm doing the data quality work. I wished I didn't have to spend time doing this whole people thing and communicate. Whatever it was that gave me an aha moment, very thankful that I got it. That when I realized, oh, when people start asking me why, then they're doing their job. Just because somebody comes and asks any kind of manager or executive for money for a project doesn't mean they're just going to hand it over. They're doing their job if they ask questions like, why should I care about that? What's in it for our organization? What do you need? Okay, they're doing their job asking those questions. What's my job? My job is to be able to answer those questions. So I answer those questions by using my business impact techniques. I answer those questions by using my good communication and engagement skills with people. Okay, I'll stop for a second. Nicole, any other questions?
Yes, we've got a couple of good questions.
Okay.
Let me ask them in the order that I think the fastest ones to answer through more complicated ones. So first, curious if you've been involved with the Bach V3 and or if you're aware if they'll be revising their approach to data quality.
So, no, I have not. I did have some input into earlier versions of DMBOK, the data management body of knowledge. I have not been involved in the version 3, so I do not know what that looks like. So I can't give a comparison as to what that looks like compared to what I'm offering here.
Okay. All right. Next question. Where should ownership of data quality really reside? Business owners, data stewards, IT, or a shared accountability model?
Okay, I think there is a place for everyone to have ownership. Now, ownership is a word that can be fraught. If I own it and nobody else can touch it, that's not a good way. But we need to have a stewardship attitude for everyone, whether you're on the business side, whether you're on the IT side, whether you're on the data side. So if we all can realize our role when it hits my plate, my role looking at things in behalf of everyone else, I think it needs to be shared, but it needs to be clear, and people need to buy into that.
Okay, I love that. Okay, and then the last question, what strategies have worked best for you to ensure that data quality is seen as a this is a very similar question, shared business responsibility rather than solely an IT responsibility? So maybe similar in outcome, but more on the communication aspect.
Yeah, it just truly, that's why step 10 is so important. It took me a little while at the beginning of my data quality career to realize that everything I did around data quality was triggering some change. Oh, we need some new roles. We need new responsibilities. Oh, we're changing a process. Oh, we're putting in a new tool. Like there wasn't anything that I was doing around data quality that wasn't asking people to do something a little bit different. So it was at that time I said, wow, I really need to bump up my change management skills. So I did a lot of work for myself in helping to understand change management and do those skills better. So I think that change management area is specifically something that can help with getting the buy-in. People need to understand how it affects them. That's the business impact techniques. But understanding that people are going, oh, yeah, I'm good with change, just don't do anything different. We have to address that actual human piece of it. I think I answered the question, but if I didn't answer the question, Nicole, read it back to me again.
I think you did too.
Okay.
But if Nelson, if you have follow-up questions, just let us know.
Okay. So I'm going to just keep moving through this. The question was, I'd love to hear your views on how metadata can drive better data quality versus just documenting it. So the short answer, to ensure high quality data, you also must understand and manage the quality of data specifications, which provide the information needed to make, build, use, manage, or provide your information. So what do I mean by that? Data specifications, it's an overarching term that I use in the 10 steps to include any information or documentation that provide context, structure, meaning to data and information. So this is the information to make, build, produce, assess, use, and manage data and information. There, within the 10 steps methodology, I focus on 5 really basic data specifications: metadata, data standards, reference data models, and business rules. These are not the only data specifications that exist. In fact, in the book, I have a really nice bigger list of other kinds of specifications you may care about. But these are so basic, I didn't want to skip those. Everyone is going to need those. This is also the kinds of things that provide that context that AI is talking about. So you decide which specifications apply to your project and the level of detail. There's lots of places that data specifications show up. They're so important, they show up in a lot of places in the 10 steps methodology. So I'm not going to go through the definitions of the 5 that I'm focusing on, But once again, if you have other specifications, you bring them in, but you don't lose your place on where you are in the 10 steps. So this is just a nice quick example of why we need the specifications and how those 5 specifications work together. Okay, we have a number 25. What is it? We don't know. But metadata is going to tell us, is it a temperature, a patient number? What is it? It's telling me in this example, it's a standard industry code. And we have a definition for what an industry code is, how and why it's used, for example. Data standards, in this case, the SIC code comes from an external body. Those data standards are going to give this a list of categorized SIC codes. They're going to be definitions, valid formats. And then we have reference data internally. So it may be that our company only works with organizations that are a subset of these SIC codes. So maybe we have reference data in a table with a list of valid SIC codes that are used within our organization. And then we have a data model. The data model in our organization can tell us, okay, we're going to be accessing some records to assess for quality. Where are they stored in these physical data structures? The data model can tell us that. It will tell us the relationship of these SIC code field to the other data, and it's going to tell us where do we find that reference table with that list of valid SIC codes. All important things for us. And a business rule for us might say something like, within our organization, every customer record must have an SIC code which identifies the primary business of the customer's establishment. If that's a business rule from a data quality perspective, I can already start saying things like, oh, that means SIC code is a required field. That means when I do a data quality check, I need a 100% fill rate on that field. And it needs to be not just have something in the field, it needs to be a valid value. How am I going to know it's a valid value? Oh, I can compare to see if it shows up in that reference data. So that just gives you an example of how these 5 really basic important data specifications work together. And basically, you can't tell if something is wrong unless you can define what being right is. The data specifications help tell us what is right when we do our data quality work. Okay, so a next question. DAMA has their data quality dimensions. How relevant are they in real life? Data quality dimensions are very relevant. DAMA plus other people have their own lists of data quality dimensions. The important thing to remember about the data quality dimensions as we show them in the 10 steps, they are generally categorized by how you actually measure and manage that particular dimension. The 10 steps is a doing methodology. I've learned conceptually from all of the others. The ones that I'm offering to you folks in the 10 steps are really basic, and by looking at them as they're categorized in the 10 steps, you can actually do the work of measuring and of managing them. Now, it's possible, it's not just possible, it is true that some dimensions that are called out separately in other lists, like they may say a dimension of completeness, like is there a value in the field, and validity, oh, is that a valid value? They're grouped in this example, grouped under one dimension in my 10 steps, which I call data integrity fundamentals. And you're not going to find that dimension anywhere else because the processes or tools that we determine and measure completeness and validity can all be done at the same time. So here's the list of the data quality dimensions. Data quality dimension, characteristic, aspect, or feature of data. A way to classify our data needs and define, measure, improve, and manage. And so different techniques, different kinds of tools, sometimes different types of experience and knowledge from people in different areas to be able to look at these and assess the results and be able to analyze the results as they come out. That's everything I just said. You can go back and look at these slides. Okay, question. Okay, I made up this question, so I could tell you just a couple of other things. Oh, no, actually, somebody did actually ask this question. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic.
How do
Good
you
for
suggest
them.
you get the best value from the book? That was a true question, not my made up question. It's not a short answer, but I'm going to flip through some slides. So remember at the beginning, we talked about concepts, we talked about structuring your project, we talked about the recipe. Okay, you can see that we have context, background, and key concepts mapped to these chapters in the book. Structuring our project, the 10 steps process. Chapter 4 is the biggest chapter in the book, and that's where it really lays out the 10 steps process, and there are some sub steps, but you really need all the other pieces too in order to know how to think and apply well the 10 steps process. So that's one thing that you can look at. I'm not J.K. Rowling. This is not on the New York Times bestseller list, but this approach has really hit its mark for the people who can use it. I'm not making a whole bunch of money off a bunch of royalties, so I feel very honest in saying if you're doing data quality, get the book. If you sign up for the class, you will get an e-copy of the book as part of the registration. So read through the introduction. Sometimes people undervalue the introduction. It'll give you some good background, audiences, reasons, my goals, the structure of the book, which is really helpful. And in chapter 4, which I said was the biggest chapter, each step 1 through 10 has a step summary table. And it describes for that particular step the objective. What are we doing? Purpose. Why are we doing that? What are the inputs, tools and techniques, outputs? At the end, checkpoint questions to help you go, do I think I'm done with this step? Am I ready to move on to the next step? And that is really helps keep you moving forward. And then there are suggestions for things that you can do to communicate, manage, and engage with people in that particular step. So there's 10 step summary tables. So to really familiarize yourself, read each of those 10 step summary tables in order. You acquaint yourself with the overall process. You'll see some relationships, flows, inputs, and outputs. Learn what we're trying to accomplish. So that's a really good way. And then skim the other chapters. Do not forget about supplementary material. If I do say so myself, there's a good glossary, bibliography, and if you find figures, tables, templates, you can always find them easily by going back to that list and being able to jump to them. So then, if you familiarize yourself to that, now I have a real problem right now. Then you go back and you start looking at the details that are relevant to your particular situation. But you're going to want to keep that book on your shelf, so to speak. You're going to return to the 10 steps when you face other data quality related situations and concerns. The methodology, scalable, flexible, one person, 4 weeks, 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 months, more people, bigger kinds of a project. Okay, so this was my question that I put in case we needed to, in case we had more time. Any other questions?
Somebody revisited this concept of the importance of data quality for all the emerging technologies, Gen AI, digital transformation. So if you wanted
Oh,
to
yeah,
reiterate
yeah.
that.
Oh, I will say a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I will really emphasize that the kinds of things that I touched on here, like in step 2, analyze the information environment. We need it for AI. I don't care what the technology is. Obviously, AI has big promise for good and it can have big impact for bad. And the better we use the technology, AI or anything else, we still need to know why in the world are we using that technology? That's our business need. What kind of processes are going to be incorporated into that? What we have now versus what do we need? What processes do we need to develop? So everything around that information environment, requirements and constraints. We hadn't even talked about that. Requirements and constraints, information lifecycle, processes, people, data specifications, technology. You have to have all those pieces working together in order to have high quality information. And by giving the data view and bringing all of those aspects together that very often people just look at them. Oh, I'm doing a technology. Oh, I'm doing a process. You can't look at them separately. They all have to work together. And the 10 steps view, which brings all of that together, is really We need that for any of the work we do and any of the technologies. And by doing that, we get to see relationships we haven't seen before. We will come up with better solutions than what we had otherwise because we are seeing these interactions across all of them. Okay, all right. You can look at this. This talks about different kinds of project types, and you can get a PDF of quick references out on my website. Oh, this is a short answer. Changes have you seen over time in people who are hired entirely to focus on data quality, seen more people hired as data quality engineers or other roles with data quality in the title? Okay, this is a short answer because I have not done research on really in depth into job roles, but through my experience over time, data quality in the title has definitely increased over the years. And I have been happy to see the number of data quality job roles that I see come across my desk. Sometimes data quality roles are eclipsed by that role of the day. Data scientists were really helpful, important, and sexy. Hey, I think data quality is sexy. Okay, AI roles, whatever it is. But I do think it's important that we do have job roles with data quality in the title because it shows the need for data quality and it makes it easier to hire and compensate people appropriately if we do have that in their roles. Okay, do you want to learn more? Join our live stream training, 3 days live stream, and it actually works. I have taught this so many times and it really works. Deadline to register Monday, September 14th, but earlier to register is always better, helps us do our planning. You can look at this slide for the 10 steps at a glance. I just summarized to you of why taking this data view is so important to our organizations. And a few years ago, I was doing a keynote called Data Quality Can Save the World. At first, I was facetious about it, but I truly believe it. I really do think having high quality data and trusted information is all about improving our organizations. And in our world, in our schools, in our charities, in our nonprofit work, in our government, healthcare, like no matter what organization you're in, we need this broad view of data quality that you can learn here. And everything we do is for all those things we care about in the world. We're not doing it for the sake of data quality. We're doing it for all those other important things we care about. So if you happen to know people who could get a benefit from having the 10 steps in Chinese or in Japanese, those are available, and the Spanish translation should be out by the end of this year. Hopefully, I've increased your appetite for data quality and using the 10 steps. If you're interested in learning more, please register for the 3-day training. At a minimum, is there anything that we've talked about today that you can start thinking about, start putting into place for the work that you're doing? So don't get overwhelmed by all the stuff because it gets broken down in such a very clear way that you can make good decisions. All you can do, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. My favorite quote, Arthur Ashe, famous tennis player. And thank you. Did I make it?
That was incredible. Wow. You packed so much value into an hour. That was, I think, one of the best webinars that I have seen. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. But yeah, just to reiterate, we have the awesome opportunity to hang out with Danette and learn from her for 3 days coming up in September. So maybe some of you guys will be able to come to that. And if you have any questions, do send us an email. And yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me here and appreciate all your questions.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, everybody. The participation was great. All right. Have an awesome Thursday, everyone.